Good evening. The Charter Township of Plymouth Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021 will come to order. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Stewart. Here. Trustee Monahan.
Here.
Clerk Vorba, here. Trustee Dorshevitz.
I am here, and I am currently located in Orlando, Orange County, Florida, and I'm attending the meeting remotely pursuant to the exemption in the Open Meetings Act that allows for a remote participation if there is an emergency order in place, as there is from the state of Michigan.
Okay.
Trustee Kermy.
Here.
Treasurer Clinton.
Here.
Supervisor Heisey.
Here.
All present. We have a quorum.
Okay, tonight's Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Clerk Jerry Vorva.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Clerk Vorva. Tonight I do have to read the rules and procedures for tonight's meeting. Tonight's board meeting is a hybrid, in-person and remote access meeting. The township will be utilizing both Zoom audio and your regular telephones for this meeting, which will be accessible to members of the public. One point of order that if you are on your phone and watching us live on TV, you may want to mute your TV, as there is probably going to be some feedback between the TV and the phone. I, as the meeting host, will call for public comment during those portions of the meeting and may also ask if there are public comments on each agenda item as they are being discussed, if those items are relevant and germane to the item before the board. Members of the public participating in the electronic meeting who wish to speak during public comment on an agenda item should use the raise hand feature if you are on Zoom, or if you if you are on Zoom, you would activate the *9 feature on your telephone keypad to raise your hand, but only after we've called for comments. Pressing *9 on your telephone keypad will activate the raise hand feature, signaling to the meeting host that a participant wishes to speak. And of course, we'll conduct ourselves as we normally do, one person at a time, 3-minute limit on all public comments, and I will be enforcing that tonight, as always. If you are calling on a regular phone, a regular push-button phone, you should use *6 to mute or unmute yourself during the meeting, or if you wish to be called upon. Let's see, anything else? Every once in a while, if you're watching this on TV, I'll be gesturing to my left to go to see Bob Jenks, our IT director, who's here tonight. He will be the broadcast engineer who will be letting us know if we have questions either via Zoom or by normal regular phone. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. Clear as mud, but we're trying to make it work here. Okay. Well, we're going to move on now to item D, approval of the agenda.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move for the approval of the agenda for Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021.
Motion's made by Clerk Vorva. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Monahan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next is item E, approval of the consent agenda. Comments or questions? Chief is here if you have any questions about the vehicle. Township engineer is here. If I have no other comments or questions, then I will need a roll call on this, Mr. Clerk.
I move for the approval of the agenda, the consent agenda for Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021.
Okay, motion's made by Clerk Vorva. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Treasurer Clinton. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Monahan.
Here. Yes.
Yes. Clerk Vorba. Yes. Trustee Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, great. Yes. Okay, item F is public comment, limited to 3 minutes. This includes the folks who are tuning in. We'll start, though, with anybody who is here in person. Anybody in person would like to speak at this time? Mr. Harris?
I must be missing a page. Is the community development thing still on the agenda?
Economic Development Coordinator, yes, it's item G2.
Okay.
Do we
I'm-
not, excuse me, we agreed to rules. And in my life as a state rep of 6 years and a lawyer in Wayne County of 43 years, all comments are directed through the supervisor who must approve their germaneness.
Okay, well, we're,
And if we have people testify, I'd like to know their addresses, and I'd like to proceed with proceeding through you, Mr. Supervisor. You do accept that responsibility?
absolutely. Typically, we do ask people to state their address, but, you know, we're
I am Robert Harris, 12471 Willoway Court, Plymouth, Michigan. I want to talk about the community development proposal, the proposal for an added position. I am a conservative. Notice the button-down collar, striped shirt. And therefore, any expansion of government flies in the face of my values. Number two, it seems to me that Plymouth Township is not, the government is not a private corporation, and that if there's an added responsibility, an added job, an added position, that that would be discussed first, the need for that. And then, secondly, okay, we open it up and see who's the qualified candidates. Third thing is that our township is almost, we're half a township, is almost fully developed. And the need for new businesses has always been, in the past, at least in my time here in the last 20 years, has been handled by the supervisor, some of the board members, et cetera. And I know that Supervisor Heisey has a good relationship with the businesses in the community, and I was on both the Board of Review, also I was chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and several times I remember companies that came in for this or that said, you know, they really enjoyed it here. They came here because of low taxes. They appreciate the flexibility that the people in the township government give them, and we always seem to be on their side. So there aren't any issues as far as companies that are here now. I mean, I can just see a government person going in and meeting with a company here that's already here. It says, hi, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. And they'll say, oh, okay, can you reduce my taxes, my property taxes? Well, not really, that's another responsibility of other people. So, okay, nice to meet you, I got a meeting to go to. Thank you. So that's I am obviously not in favor of that added position. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Anyone else in person? Okay, Mr. Jenks, anybody online? Can we just give another couple seconds here? If you're on Zoom, you can raise your hand by hitting *9. If you're on your phone, you can unmute yourself by hitting *6. Okay, we're going to move on to item G1. This is the Hilltop Golf Course Annual Report. Tony Mosconi is here from AMV Golf Management with some of his staff. Tony, if you could just briefly tell us who you are and just introduce your staff who's here tonight, and stay close to the mic. And you can take the mask off too, legally.
All right, thank you. Now I can put my glasses on.
Yeah, that's illegal.
My name is actually Tony Mosconi, 1586 Rockfield, Troy, Michigan. I have Doug Palm here, who's our golf course superintendent, and I have Jim Gorney, who's the director of golf. at Hilltop for us. So they're both here just to sort of help me out in case I make a mistake or mess up. I believe everybody sort of got the packet, that overview that I did. So I'll run through it real quick. I hate it when people hand stuff out and then they read it verbatim. So I'll try to sort of hit the hot spots.
Well, remember, there's people at home that will want to hear what you have to say. So
Perfect. I will check. So AMV, when we started out here, when we were awarded the agreement, the management agreement, our number one thing was making the course more playable, a la more enjoyable. So with that in mind, we've always kept that as sort of our mission, our goal, our target, our aim, is to try to make the course a little bit more enjoyable and a little bit more playable. So when we go run down this list, keep that in mind. And I'll get to the financial part here shortly. But with that, tree maintenance. As you can see on here, we've removed about 20 dead trees last year, along with some limbs. Since we've been on the property, we've removed at least 50 trees and limbs that were really from a safety concern. A few trees that probably weren't in the correct position after they had grown for so many years that sort of blocked golf shops into the greens. But most of the trees that we have done have been from a safety concern, that a limb was hanging or a tree could have fallen or a tree was dying or is dead, and we took it down. And those are some of the things we're just going to have to continue on, and hopefully, as I said, I'll get later into this presentation how hopefully we can accelerate and get some of this stuff done quicker. Cart paths. We filled a lot of the potholes on the cart paths. We blended some of the cart paths where it ran over a pipe or a water pipe that the cart path had gone over. Over the years, the cart path had sunk, but the pipe had stayed up there. So we sort of filled in and leveled out some of those paths to make the ride a little bit smoother. A, to prevent somebody from getting hurt, and B, to try to help out the carts and have the carts last a little bit longer. The carts are older, so we're trying to do all we can to try to keep the carts going. Drain maintenance. Last spring and the spring before have been wet springs. So as I say this, keep that in mind. It's not your normal spring that we ran into the past couple years, but all that being said, there's a lot of drain issues on the golf course. There's a lot of drains that have been neglected for many, many years, that have fallen in disrepair, that are plugged up, that the pipes are bad. Whatever the case may be, we're trying to address that as we move along every year. We're trying to catch up on that stuff. That stuff, as I said, has just been sort of overlooked for many years. Tee boxes fall into the same thing. So what happens with tee boxes over the years, as mowers go up and down, they sort of round off and become not square to the tee in order so you can have as much tee area as you can. They get rounded, so the tee area shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. And then when you come upon 2020, which was one of the best years in golf in 30 years, the tee area gets abused because there's just not that much space to put a tee in the ground. So we've addressed that. I think we worked on some tees last year. We added 3 brand new tees on holes 5, 10, and 11, and we're going to continue to try to add tees and improve tees here for 2021, 22, and on. Hopefully this resurgence in golf continues on, and with that in mind, we're going to have to expand the tee boxes to sort of handle the load on the golf course. The clubhouse, we ran into an issue with the air conditioner last year. We sort of put a Band-Aid together to get it going, and as I said, later on in the presentation, I'll talk about a thought we have in our repair/replacement. But what happened in 2020 is when we started out the year, the clubhouse was closed. So we were able to convert one of the windows into almost like a drive-through type thing where people would walk up, check in really, because we were forcing folks to pay online, and then go out and play. Last year, we purchased a new for the golf course, but a used beverage cart. So we have a newer beverage cart in the golf course. We bought 2 greens rollers to try to improve the greens and make them a little bit smoother, a little bit faster. They're undulating. They're a little bit of an aggressive type greens on a lot of the greens on the golf course, but we're still trying to make it smooth. Bunker rake. I don't know if the course had a bunker rake before. It did. Broke down, so we bought a new bunker rake that goes out and rakes the bunkers every morning. And then from our standpoint, being a management company and having another golf course, basically last year on site, we just left a tractor that was also a loader. It had some attachments on it, and then because we have an air fryer and a top dresser for the greens at the end of the year, we're able to utilize that from our other golf course at Hilltop, and all that kind of stuff was at no charge to Hilltop. We just did it as part of our agreement. sort of review a little bit on 2020. So we start out the year as horrible as the pandemic has been for many families and businesses. The unfortunate has been a blessing for the golf industry. There's a lot of articles that have been out that since really for the past 30 years, outside of 1997, and ironically the Tiger Woods year was 1997, 2020 was the best year in golf. With the pandemic and folks stuck at home, not much to do, golf was one of the few things you can go out and get some semblance of normalcy. You get together with your foursome, you go out and play, and then get back to wearing a mask and a 6-foot social distancing. But at least on the golf course for either 2 hours or 4 hours, you were able to enjoy life as it used to be. With all that, we started out the year closed. We weren't allowed to be open. I think for about 3 weeks, our normal season weather permitting, we were closed. And then once we were open with heavy restrictions, no alcohol sales. I think for a little bit it was walking only, no carts. Then we were allowed carts, but then we were only allowed one person per cart. And then we were trying to go over it before we got here, but I think really by the end of May, was normal. And so that's really 2 months into a normal golf season, but by the time we were able to, if you wanted to, you could go 2 people per cart, and we were able to sell alcohol. So with all that being said, as I said, 2020 turned out to be a fantastic year for golf. We hit on 19,062 rounds. Last year, our point of sale wasn't up to speed until mid-April, but still last year we did 13,640. Our average revenue, or average dollar per round, was $29.06. The year before it was $23.60. And if you roll back to 2018, it was actually $16.46. So we've come a long way. Now going forward here into 2021, leagues. Jim has done a good job so far of getting out and talking to folks. We're probably at about 120 league players. Last year we were at about 60. So when I say about, it's because the leagues come in and they, quote unquote, they commit to 20 or 30 players, but things change over 3 or 4 months. So by the time they commit in the fall and the winter to the time the league actually tees off in the spring, sometimes things change. So it could go better or it could go worse, but right now we're at least 60 golfers more than last year for leagues. Outings at Hilltop, since we've been there for the past 2 years, have been tough to come by, and I think 2021 is going to be the same thing. We saw it at our other golf course at Cattails. Unfortunately, there's a disconnect with folks where companies and charities and fundraisers that used to have golf outings, because the food and beverage wasn't 100% as it was before, somehow decided not to do their golf outing. And I'm sure that was part of it, and I'm sure people working from home was part of it, and maybe even folks being laid off was part of it. You mix that all together, the outing business just hasn't come back yet. So hopefully for this year, it's something that we can build upon. Now to the numbers. So in 2020, to put it in context, we grossed out at $754,000. Really, that was the best the course has done since, I think, 2004. It grossed at $800,000. And then when you come down to the net operating income, we generated $102,000, $102,829 to be exact, of net operating income. So that's pre-tax, pre-depreciation, but that's what we ended up with. Once again, keep that in mind. This year, out of the past 30 years, 2020 and 1997 were the 2 best years. So I'd like to think we can repeat that in 2021, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to do that, and I'll step into that here next. So just before we started, I gave Mark a check for half of that, which was $51,414, I think.
You got it.
Cool. So that was great. This was one of the few times ever here as a golf management company, because golf has been such a tough business, that we're able to cut a check and actually collect some revenue. So that was very, very nice, and very, very fortunate on our part.
That's our profit for the year, based on our contract with you guys.
Correct.
That's a big deal.
It is.
Great, thank you.
That really, really is. And we're hoping to do not hopefully to do positive for 2021. So what I did, and I explained, is we've done an operating budget. And you know, in a business sense, there's operating budgets, and then you sort of create like goals and aims of what you're trying to do. So this is our operating budget in order to maintain and hopefully improve the golf course as is, where we can pay the bills, keep things going, keep the momentum going, and still generate a little bit of profit at the end of the year. So right now for 2021, yes, we did do about $754,000 in 2020, but I'm forecasting it back down to $645,000 for 2021. And as I said, just to put that in context, the year before in 2019, we grossed out at $523,000. So it's still better than what we did in 2019, but it's not as well as we did in 2020. And who knows, it could still be better than this, because a lot of folks, the first half of 2021, are going to be working from home. And that was one of the benefits of golf, is you had folks working from home. So not only seniors could come and play golf during the day, but you had everyone with the ability to come and play golf during the day. So right now, I'm still forecasting the first half of the season to be good. And then we'll see from July on what happens. Really, from July on, when you get into September, October, which last year, once again, was another good year in the fall, becomes weather dependent, especially when you get into September, October. And last year, we had a fantastic September, October. I think we're open into November, right? Right. That's it before I get into some of the capital improvements we have planned. Anybody has any questions?
Any questions?
Chuck.
What is in the cost of goods sold?
Hold on, Bob.
Cost of goods sold, Chuck, is merchandise for the shop and merchandise for the grill, for the food and beverage.
Okay, so your expenses for fertilizers in the expense line.
Is an expense line,
All
correct?
right.
Yes.
Bob?
Yeah, thank you. So does the 2906 in revenue per round include concession sales?
What was the first part of that?
And I guess if so or if not, you know, that's a substantial increase in the revenue per round. What would you attribute that to?
Is he asking our average cost or average revenue per round? Is that what he asked?
Can you just rephrase the question, Bob?
No, I think I heard it.
So the revenue per round, that was one of the challenges that we had in the past, is the revenue per round was pretty low. And I think it was in part because there were a lot of giveaways through Groupons, things like that. But you've managed to raise the revenue per round pretty significantly, from what, 2360 to 2906. So you've raised it by over 20%. So what do you attribute that increase to? Is it increased prices, or does that include better concession sales, or how were you able to do that?
Taking a step back, if you look at the year before, it was an increase in 2019, and then 2020 was another increase in the average round. And no, food and beverage is not into that. That's strictly golf and cart only. Walking, golf, and cart. Really, the factor is, as we do it, and as I've done it forever, since 1991, is we look at what the market rate is. And when we came into this in 2019, Hilltop was way below the market rate for the area. And I'm meaning market rate like apples to apples, courses to courses, municipal to municipal. It was well below what other surrounding communities were charging. And of course, you can't just go in there and just bump the rate up without any justification. So that's where we've sort of come in and said, okay, let's, you know, in 2019, we had to move the rate up and then prove that we're going to, you know, rake the bunkers every day, mow the greens every day, move the tees arounds every day, all that. So we did that. And then last year, once we did the same thing, we looked at the market, looked at the surrounding communities, and then adjusted the rate to sort of fit what the surrounding market was doing. And then we started discovering that there were some tee boxes that haven't been used in many, many years. So we started going back to those tees. We started improving tees. We started adding tees. So this year we're going to do the same thing. We're going to look at the market rate and see what the surrounding communities are charging for their municipal golf courses, and then we'll adjust. And we'll find ways to maybe do that that's less front in your face impactful, where maybe in our golf system the basement price will be raised up a little bit. So we'll find different ways to keep that going. But that's essentially how we did it is, at first we sort of had to raise the price before proving it, but I think going forward, going forward, we're going to do improvements on the golf course, add amenities on the golf course, and then show a price increase.
Tony, could I add just something to that?
Sure, Mark.
I know when we had the previous management team managing Hilltop, the three biggest complaints I always heard about the course and why it was, so cheap to play was A, the playability of the course. It was a tough course to play. Even though it's short, it was a tough course to play. B was the pace of play. You'd get on the first tee and then you'd wait 15 minutes to get onto the next tee. And then the third one was just the overall condition of the course. And what these folks have been able to do in relatively 2 short years is fix that problem. The playability of the course with the new tees, which are, they're now tees that you can move up front, with trimming the trees down so you can, if you do hit a ball, another fairway, you can hit under the trees, which is important. The playability, they've spread the tee times out so you don't run into backlogs, and the condition of the course, Doug, is incredible compared to what it was 2 years ago. So we've got a better product, and with a better product, you can charge a better price. I think that's the bottom line, in my opinion.
That's exactly it. Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Anybody else on the board?
So we're going to talk about these.
Yeah,
All right.
we're going to talk about the
I have a
capital stuff.
question then when you get to that.
We're getting there. Okay, Tony, keep going.
All right, so looking at I believe the township has approved the $25,000 out of that check now that I forgot for $51,000.
51,414.
Thank you, 51,414. I had the semblance of memory there for a minute. These are the items that we'd like to allocate that $25,000 to. And it's a little bit of a different order, and I'm going to look at Doug here to make sure I have this order right. But the number one thing is the pump house, is the irrigation, correct? That needs a big overhaul. So we have an estimate on that is about $6,000. And then, obviously with a proper running irrigation system, it's going to save on the pipes, it's going to save on the sprinklers, it's going to have the golf course look better. You don't have to worry about poor Doug coming in the morning and the sprinkler system did not go off because the pump house didn't activate, all those kind of things. This is going to help the golf course in so many different facets.
Can you, we have a pond out there that fills up. Is that pond keeping at the level, it was designed for that. Are you able to keep the pond up so that you don't overtax the well, or, and is the well working properly?
Doug?
You got to come up because we can't hear you otherwise. And go right into the mic.
We didn't have to add any water to the pond this year at all. There's a board system that raises the height of the pond. We did add, the Parks Department and myself, added one board to it, which is kind of standard procedure, and it holds enough water to supply the golf course. And if it did it this year, I would venture to say that unless a very unusual drought year, it would do fine. We've tested the pump. The pump does, from a well, does fill that pond, but it hasn't been needed.
So you're not using the well, you're using the ponds only?
Yes, correct.
Well, thank you for your creativeness, because in the past, we've actually used city water sometimes to fill that pond.
It hasn't been needed yet. We monitor that. Obviously, we don't want to run out of water, and so it's done well for me.
Okay.
Second, and I'm going by memory, excuse me, but I would believe second would be tree maintenance, in the order of between tree maintenance and drains. So some of this stuff, somebody could say, well, this is normal maintenance of a golf course. But as I said, because the golf course had been neglected for quite some time, we need to do some of these things to sort of accelerate and catch up. Because once we do catch up and the course is of a standard, then a lot of these things become just normal maintenance. Fixing drains, improving drains. We do that at our golf course all the time. We'll do the same at Hilltop. But as you'll see, some of these things, we're trying to accelerate that in order to catch up, basically. So drains is approximately $5,000. If I go to the next thing, I would believe it would be...
Let's go back to tree maintenance. Are you able to use our new tree branch chipper, and has it been of any help?
We will. We haven't used it yet, right? But we will, 100%, we will.
I'm not sure if we've even received it yet. I know we purchased it, but I'm not sure if we've received it yet.
So cart path would be the next thing, repairing the cart path and some additions to the cart path. As I said, because the past 2 springs, and it's in our brains here, have been wet, if we're able to get some cart paths extended and repaired, we're able to get carts out there earlier on the golf course. As a result of getting carts on the golf course, we're able to obviously generate a higher dollar value on the golf course. So that would be one of the goals that we're going to use this $25,000 for. And then as the year goes by, then it gets hot. The clubhouse, unfortunately, the the system that's in there right now just cannot keep up. We're forced to try to keep the AC as low as possible at night in order to try to have it cool in the morning, and then it slowly raises the temperature by the day, and then by the time the evening comes around, it's too warm in there. So unfortunately, we had a air conditioner person that we use for our total sports business come out and take a look at it, but here in the wintertime, it's hard for him to test it. So that quote is based on replacement. It may not need to be replaced, but that's one of the AC units, right? Just the AC unit, Jim, or for the AC and the heat? AC. So just the AC unit was $4,200.
Have they diagnosed the problem? Is it a sizing problem, or is there a mechanical problem?
That's the kind of thing, Chuck. Obviously, we'll bring him back out in whenever the temperature allows for him to test it and see what it can be. If hopefully it's just a repair, then by all means, that's what we're going to do. But if it's a replacement, then we'll have to do something. Because as we get more leagues and hopefully more outings, we need that clubhouse to be at least at below 80 to take care of the customer in a proper manner.
What about insulation? Are we insulated okay? Or is there some problem with too much heat gain in the building because of either bad windows or no insulation or something?
I don't know, Chuck, about the insulation. If somebody from the...
There were allegedly improvements made in the 2015-2016 timeframe by, I believe, an unlicensed builder. So you might want to just check on things like insulation, structural integrity, things of that nature.
Okay. We can have somebody do that, so maybe we can do that in concert with an air conditioning, hopefully repair, along with some better insulation. Maybe we can get away with that and be a little bit less than the 4,200.
Because, Tony, as I add up your numbers right now, I think I come to 25.5.
Yes. Yep.
So that 500, maybe if we can shave that off, either the AC cost or I would say tree maintenance would probably be the most logical.
More than likely, Kurt, or we'll pitch in and do that, because some of these items are just should or could get done for the golf course. We'll put in the extra.
Well, I mean, we've authorized 25,000.
Right.
And it's not going to be, a blank check. We're going to want to see where the money was spent, obviously. But for us to go above and beyond that, it's doable, but we have to do a budget amendment. We have to vote on it. We have to go through the bureaucratic process of making that happen. So just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Unless we as a board want to make a decision to spend more than 25,000 on some of these other things this calendar year. But I look at those initial 25,000, those 5 budget items as really almost like infrastructure, golf course infrastructure, and it really goes to the playability of the course. And I think when it comes to the AC especially, that's our building, and we shouldn't have to make you pay for the upkeep of our building. My personal feeling.
All right.
Yeah, I agree.
Just to refresh memories, Kurt, when we put together the 2021 budget, this was back in September, and we've reached an agreement with AMV that any profits they make at the end of the year, we split 50-50. We were anticipating that they would make $50,000 at the end of the year, and therefore in the budget, since it was done last in September, we approved our entire share, half of the $50,000 would go towards reinvestment in the course maintenance. And lo and behold, they didn't make $50,000, they made $100,000. So we received double what we were anticipating. So I think it's worthy of a discussion to see, do we want to invest more of that profit sharing back into the course to continue to improve the shape and the playability of the course? I think it'll pay dividends in the long run.
And I also think Mark Lewis, our building director, if you could get him out there to at least give you his opinion on the overall building heat loss or heat gain.
Yep.
Could be a
I agree
free
with that.
consultation.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Uh-huh.
our building, so we want to maintain it.
Yeah, we will do that. So at some point, I'll get his contact, or Doug, somebody will get his contact.
Email.
Cool. So that was out of that $25,000 worth of items I just went through. And then, per Mark's notes, if there is monies available above and beyond that, we've listed some of the stuff to look at. And outside seating area. So right now what happens is if we do get some outings going on, we can really only seat about 70 people inside. A typical golf outing is going to be 100 to 144. God bless, we get 144 golfers out there for a golf outing. It hasn't happened, I don't think, oh, it has happened yet. I apologize. So it has happened. So if our thought is, and what happens is you have a golf outing going on during the day, if it's Monday through Friday, let's say, and then you have your league start coming in at 5 o'clock. Well, we wouldn't be able to handle that because we don't have really two places for both groups to come in. You have the outing going on inside, and what we did last year is I think we parked the beverage cart out by the 10th and first tee to sort of separate the two groups. A lot of the events and outings do not want the league, and not for any reason, just not mixing groups. They don't want league folks coming in while they're trying to do presentation or do a discussion. So with all that in mind, and I'm not sure if this is for 2021 or down the road, but we'll have to do something. We'll have some kind of patio out there or a paver system where we can put some tables and chairs and leagues can gather. The beverage carts there, there's someplace for them to sit. Or if we have a very large golf outing, as we do it at Cattails, we can put the buffet outside and do this inside for just seating. And hopefully with the AC repaired and the building in better shape, the seating part will be comfortable and folks can go in and out for the food. And believe it or not, at some outings, not everybody wants to hear what the person has to say, so sometimes even some of the groups will just float outside. So that's one of the thoughts, and that's the $12,000 is an estimate on a paver system, I think 20 by 40? 20 by 40 on the west side of the clubhouse. So if you've been to the clubhouse recently, there's some blue chairs out there between the clubhouse and the putting green, and that's our thought, that maybe a patio system could go there.
Can anything like this be rented in the interim, or with so many unfortunate situations with facilities going bankrupt,
Sure.
getting something that is portable that
We did truck with a tent. We have a tent system. Do we own it or we rented it? We own it. So we have a tent that's how large, Jim? It's 20 by 40. And we did put that up last year for a couple graduation parties we had that flowed into a golf outing the next day out there between the putting green and the first tee in that big open expanse just to the west of the putting green. So we have that, but this is pavers on the ground that would be permanent, a fixture inside, or outside, I'm sorry, outside. Tee boxes, as I was saying before, a lot of the tee boxes need to be leveled. And if golf is in the midst of this resurgence and continues on for multiple years, we're going to have to either add more tees, which also helps because it'll make the playability and pace of play quicker and more enjoyable because folks will be able to tee off the correct tees and get to the greens in the right amount of shots, hopefully, and continue on. All that being said, if we'd like to accelerate the golf course, it is an amenity that people will pay for when tees are in better shape, tees are in proper positions, folks can tee off from the right tees. This is one of the things that you can do to add to the golf course in order to justify a slight price increase. And last but not least is the golf carts. The golf carts, I believe, are from 2008, so they are now on their 13th year. We've already gone through them, most of them at least, and changed the oil. Mechanically, they're set, so just because if we have a break in the weather here, maybe mid-March or whatever the case may be, we'll be ready to go. But the carts are tired. Unfortunately, it's sort of like carts this year are sort of like gold and Bitcoin. They're hard to come by. I've talked to Pfeiffer Carts and Midwest. One's Club Cart, one's Easy Go, the two main supplier of carts. And there's not many used carts available right now. Everybody being golf courses are holding on to their golf carts. So we would have to look at new carts.
What's the public demand right now for used golf carts? I know pre-COVID the market was hot and we were getting anywhere from $750 to $1,200 for a golf cart. What would be your take on the market right now?
It's hot right now, Kurt, off my memory. I think some of these folks were quoting at least 1,500, if not more.
Wow.
So it's sort of like the good news, bad news. The carts are worth more, but they're hard to come by for a used cart fleet.
Yeah.
You know, we'd like to get at least 55. The proper cart number would be 75 carts of the same carts. That would be the right thing to do. And right now, as I said, from a used fleet system, it's hard. Now, I've just researched in Michigan. I haven't gone to Ohio, Indiana, maybe even Florida, and then seeing how much it is to transport carts. I haven't done that yet, but I will. So that's in my research here to get this done, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, to see if there's an opportunity for a cart fleet system that I think makes sense, and then bring it to you and see if that's something that makes sense for the township.
I mean, I think we recognize that the carts are showing their age and are going to need to be replaced soon, fairly soon.
Do you prefer electric or gas?
We would prefer electric, but unfortunately, we don't have a place to store them and charge them. So, I'm sorry, we prefer electric, so we're going to stick with gas, because gas for us at Hilltop, with the shed that's right next to it, that's the easiest place to park the carts, and as a result, that has to be gas.
Okay, so what we can do, I think what we can agree to in theory tonight is the top items, the initial 25,000. And then you would, obviously your goal is to get the lowest and most competitive prices possible. And I don't know, does he invoice us, or do we want to sign off on everything?
No, I think depending on who does the projects, I think, those companies would invoice us directly for the work. So we would pay the bills for those top 25,000 projects.
But the purchasing will
Could
be
you
managed
repeat
by...
that, Bob? Mark, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that, kind of like your last sentence? I couldn't hear over the noise in the crowd.
No, the projects that we've identified in the top of the page that total $25,000, AMV will coordinate with the vendors to do the work, and then we will pay the invoices directly.
So whose job will it be to ensure we get the best economic value for our money with the contractor?
I'll work with...
Somebody's got to be leading that, because you know what happens with the price when they think that nobody's watching the store.
Right.
Especially in this business marketplace with such an over demand for goods and services.
I think, Chuck, because, we're in the golf course industry, we'll gather the quotes and the invoices and the estimates, and then we can share them with Mark or whoever, and then at the end of the day, it's literally the township's golf course, so whatever you decide to do, you decide to do.
Chuck, typically I sign off on all park purchases, but I think for the golf course, since Mark is sort of our resident expert, I would prefer that both he and I sign off on anything. And again, like AC, we could get Mark Lewis to weigh in, tree removal. I mean, tree removal is such a moving target, but obviously you guys have done a lot already at your own expense. Right. And so, we're not going to be out there inspecting trees or anything like that, but, use your head and try to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
Wintertime, if you're hiring someone for trees, right now, is good.
That's who would do it.
He's it.
That reason, Chuck, is because the ground's frozen. You can drop limbs, you can drop trees, and you come back, and you can drive, tell me if I'm wrong, Doug, you can drive vehicles over frozen parts that you necessarily could not drive in the spring, for sure. So now's the time.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions from the board for Tony?
The area that's east of the parking lot has several mounds of sand or top dressing from many years ago that's overgrown with scrub trees. It kind of looks ugly. Yeah. It may be something to think about, cutting those trees or clearing that, and see if you can use the sand or make it. It just looks ugly to have these mounds of sand that have been overgrown, but for what it's worth, I don't know.
Dumpster, right there? Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, exactly, I do. We've already addressed most of the sand that was there. That's all been cleaned out. We're starting to use the mounds for fill to build these additional tees. So that's an area that we know about, and we're starting to address it. And there are trees that are dead in there, as there are all over the place, and we're gradually working on that. We're keeping it safe in that area, but it's not a playable area for golfers, so it's not the highest priority for us.
Yeah, if you can use the soil that's there, that's great, because eventually you'd have to pay somebody to haul it away or whatever, so.
We have a backhoe and a loader, so we have been, like I said, I've been using that, and I will continue to do so.
It's been there for decades, so.
And since we're on the subject of the golf course, I do want to remind the board that our 2021 prioritized goal list, it's kind of in the midsection of the goal list, but it does talk about study the feasibility of a new golf course entrance off of Ann Arbor Trail. So if we could have, I think, Jeremy, if your staff could take a look at that. Don't spend a ton of money on it, but let's just kind of see what some of the basic requirements would be for that installation.
You know, we weren't anticipating that. We planted trees in front of the right-of-way last fall, so whatever we do, we'll have to move those trees if we ever get lucky and make that a driveway. We'd like to save those trees that were donated or paid for by, I think, Webasto.
We're going to have even more trees this year, but that area is wide open enough right now. The question becomes also, what do we do with Powell Road? Now, the entrance to the golf course, the dirt road, that is Powell Road, and that is still, it's arguable whether or not that is still the responsibility of the county. The county has told us that they will no longer grade Powell Road because they claim that they no longer own it, that it's vacated. I think that's in dispute. And Powell Road also is, can be dangerous, especially if you're trying to make a left-hand turn onto Beck. I know that we've had, looking to Mr. Harris there, I think I've gotten some emails from you over the years about that, and their concerns are absolutely legit. So I think we just need to investigate this possibility, and I know that there will be possibly concerns from the neighbors around there, and we want to make sure that we do this in a very transparent manner. So, excellent. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Moscone? Anybody in the audience would like to comment? 3 minutes. Okay, I think you're, oh yeah, that's right. Bob Dorshevitz, you okay? We've lost Bob.
No, I'm here. Sorry,
okay,
I was
man.
muted.
It's okay.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Jenks, is there anybody online that we should be aware of? Okay, no hands. No hands.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, item G2 is contract for economic development coordinator. I did pull this item at the last meeting because we were getting some feedback from board members regarding the scope of the contract and some of the other items. So based on the feedback that I've received from several of you, I've present you tonight a revised agreement for Mr. Heitman. And again, this is a professional independent contractor agreement. I'm not going to read the memo even more than Mr. Moscone likes doing that. But just a few items on the second page, Mark, that I just want to highlight. As opposed to the last contract, these are basically the scope of Mr. Heitman's activities. He is limited to these specific areas of the community. It's to focus solely on new business attraction or existing business expansion. He will not engage in any retention visits. He will not be involved in the MIT. He will not bill any of his time to the MITC, even though he will stay on as a member of that board. He'll prepare and present an annual economic development report, and his performance will be reviewed by you guys in February, March of 2022. So those are the major changes to the contract. I will take any questions that you have. I don't know if Mr. Heitman wants to speak, but that's your call. I mean, I think we all know who you are. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Stewart?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor.
Make sure you have your mic close.
Is my understanding,
It's off. No. Let me look at it. It's green. It's off. It's off again. It should be green. It was green for a while.
It's red right now, I see it.
Right now, so you and then give it back to me.
that was with intent? Okay. It's my understanding we're talking about something that's been on the table for months. I have 20 pieces of paper here regarding a part-time economic development coordinator. I have Xeroxed them for anyone who would like a hard copy. Lawyers like to deal with hard copies and not just talk or cheap shots on Facebook or whatever. I would hope that we could methodically walk through this issue on the basis of need. And I have a background in personnel administration, having worked for the Michigan Municipal League as a full-time staffer in personnel administration. And I asked for two things, and I got them. One, I wanted a resume, and Mr. Heitman's resume was in our packet, and it's a single-spaced, two-page resume. And then we have what you call a job description sheet, and in the contract, the duties are listed therein. So for the sake of our listening public, I would like them to know about this issue having been on the table for 3 months. I would like them to know about the 20 pieces of paper that I have reread this past week in regard to a economic development coordinator. So let's proceed with the issue.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Hold on, Bob. Hold on, Bob.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I got Audrey's coming around.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Trustee Monahan.
Thank you, Supervisor Heisey. Oh, now I'm turning red. What's she doing to my mic?
That was a plant. That was a plant.
That's the green one. Give me my mic.
Kurt, I told you there should have been a training session for these new trustees.
I think it's the budget. We're supposed to get something better than this.
We're getting new stuff.
Okay. You know, I know it's green now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. And on top of it, I'm new at this. First of all, I have a deep respect for Supervisor Heisey. And I agree with him when he says that he needs an economic independent contractor for developing more business for our township. So that has never been an issue with me. I have full confidence in his ability to determine what it is that he needs for our township and do it responsibly. When the first contract came out, the items that I took issue with, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but rather one that we, in a discussion matter, was the hourly rate and the yearly annual pay. The annual pay has been reduced from $40,000 to $30,000, so they did listen to me in that regard. However, the hourly rate remained at $75. Why am I taking issue with that? I believe that many of our contractors are paid between $40 to $45 per hour, so I think that that's a bit excessive. I have no problems with Mr. Heitman and his ability to do this job. I want to make that very clear. However, I think that $75 per hour is excessive. The other issue that I have is that I believe that this is something we should have bid out, that we should have asked for, bids, and then the the person that was the most competent, most, responsible in this position would have gotten the job. Again, it's not about Mr. Heitman. It's not about your inability to do this job. You have served this township very well in your capacity as trustee, okay? I just think that from a cost perspective, particularly in the time we find ourselves here in the COVID generation, we have to watch our pennies. So I would have been a little happier to see the amount hourly rate go down and bids placed. And ultimately, if Mr. Heitman would have won, that would have been great too. So I want everyone to understand that this used to be a position that was full-time. And the full-time position, I believe,
What?
Supervisor Heisey was what, $65,000 a year?
Full-time?
To my knowledge, we have never had an economic
Okay,
development director.
I'm sorry, I
We had a department called Community Development, which
Okay.
was a full-time planner who she left in early 2017, and I think at that time she was making maybe, what do you think, Chuck, 65?
Yeah, with benefits, she was costing us $100,000.
Yeah, but she was basically an in-house
She was an urban planner, which is totally different than
Yeah.
what this is.
Yeah. Community development is radically different from economic development.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, anyway. But that's okay.
then I guess my point is moot, because I was going to say, when you look at how much you would pay a part-time consultant versus how you would pay a person that would be on board full-time, and what Chuck said, along with the benefits, it would be much more expensive. But having said that, I still have an issue with the hourly rate. So those are my issues. I appreciate the supervisor taking my concerns into consideration and redrafting the contract to address some of those concerns. Thank you.
And I just want to say that the original hourly rate was 80. I did knock that
Oh,
down.
that's right. I
So-
forgot. Thank you.
So the salary, the amount not to exceed has been cut, and as was the hourly rate.
Thank you.
I had a couple comments, Kurt. Like Audrey, I was concerned with the original draft of the contract for a number of reasons. Many of you know I used to run a large sales organization before I came here to the township. And in the sales world, you have two types of salespeople. You have hunters and you have gatherers, right? And hunters are people that are going after brand new business and bringing new business into that organization. And gatherers are the people that are retaining that business and maintaining those relationships. Who's the most valuable of the two? To be honest, it's those hunters, those people that are getting the new business for you. And I was concerned with the previous version of the contract because it was blurry between what Gary's responsibilities would be. There was some hunting and there was a lot of gathering. And you took my recommendations and removed the gathering components of that, like the retention visits, ribbon cutting ceremonies, those types of things. The current state of this contract is laser focused on new business development, bringing in new business to the township. That's something that's measurable, and that's something that we can keep track of. I think it's worth a $30,000 maximum investment to turn Gary loose and see what he can do to bring in new business to the township.
Thank you. Let me assure you that he will not be doing ribbon cuttings. That's still my job, believe me. That's part of the job description of the supervisor. Come on, ribbon cuttings, you got it, of course. We need more ribbon cuttings all over western Wayne County right now because of COVID. Okay, Mr. Dorshevitz.
Yeah, thank you. I have a few comments. I've got really three categories of comments that I wanted to make. First, starting with the fact that, of course, this has been quite controversial, and particularly around the issue as to whether we've ever had this role in the township before, or whether it's been done by the administration, various pieces of administration. And as I kind of thought that through, I came to the kind of realization that aside from the statutory duties that any of the full-time electeds are obligated to fulfill, it is in the supervisor's discretion as to whether he or she, or the current supervisor, whether he or she would want to, delegate or outsource some of those functions. So I'll give deference to you, Kurt, on that topic. If that's not something that, if doing the economic development is not something that, you think that you should do or can do personally, then, then I'll give you the deference on that. I have a couple of kind of categories of things that I wanted to talk about, particularly around the contract itself. And I don't agree that the contract has been modified enough to be measurable. I think it's still very squishy because there's no accounting to the board. And when we hire professional services people, they provide detailed billing as to what specific tasks and deliverables they provided during that period of time, and what the charge is for. And this contract is it's wide open. Not to pick on Gary or any individual, but they could essentially bill us for anything. I think it's got to be tightened down, specifically around deliverables. I would expect that the board would receive in its bills every month a detailed billing, probably down to whatever increment would be appropriate, 30-minute increments or so, as to where that time is being spent. Because of that, the board has only one chance per year to evaluate the performance, and the evaluation of the performance is based on the report issued by the individual who is the consultant. So, of course, they're going to give themselves a good performance evaluation. I think that really needs to be. I think that needs to be thought through a little bit better. Then the third topic area was really around form and approach, and I think it's already been stated that the no bid. It's nothing against the individual, but we never explored to see who else might be interested in the position, or who else is out there. And then in addition to that, the Board of Trustees spent over 3 hours in January doing a goal-setting meeting, and we ranked this as a very low priority. I think it was like number 59 or 60 out of 69. I mean, it was low. So I don't know why we did the goal-setting exercise if we're not, following following what the board has kind of collectively said our key goals ought to be. So I think that, to summarize what I said, I think that you should have some discretion to outsource or delegate these responsibilities if that's what your choice. But I think the contract is still. I do not agree with that the contract has been tightened down. I think it's very squishy is the word I used, and I would like to see accountability to the board, because I don't think the contract really has very much accountability to the board at all.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, I have several. Let's go back. Let's put in something that's objective, mathematics and algebra into this. In order to justify $30,000 in revenue, we'd have to win $12 million in annual new investment every year. So it's $12 million, you divide it by 2, that's $6 million that's taxable. You'd have to do that every year, and we're doing this, by the way, we're not doing anything in the MITC where the biggest chance of success for large wins are. So with our 5.2 mils, most of the money, the advantage of this is going to, if it happens, to Wayne County, and they have 7 managers and a total of 23 employees in their economic development department. So let's piggyback on that. So if we do the math, I think, Mark, you'll agree, $12 million.
I agree with your math. I think it's spot on. My one comment would be, I requested that the MITC be excluded. The reason being, we won't see any tax money for that for a long time because it's a brownfield. So
Right.
why spend time and effort in an environment where you're not going to see those tax dollars?
You're exactly right. And there's another, I mean, the investment level goes double when you count a tax abatement, which we always give, which is another 50% off. So you'd have to be at 24 million to break even. So it just doesn't add up. In the past, this kind of work has been done pro bono during the boom years of the 80s and 90s. We didn't have a person dedicated to it. That I'll be willing to help if I can do this stuff. I know what these companies do. Most of them are automotive related, and I worked in that business 42 years, so I understand it. So, hey, I can help if we need it. Just like we had a guy named, we had a trustee in the 80s who did it pro bono. Milligan, not Milligan. I forgot his name. He was a guy that passed away now. Our planning, the biggest attractors of business to Plymouth Township is, number one, our location. Number two is our tax rate. And the remainder is our planning department is very easy to work with, generally, and our planning commission. Our engineering is easy to work with. Our building department is easy to work with. This is a great place to build and expand businesses. We've never had to do this kind of aggressive development. You know, what's our biggest thing we've won recently is the Henry Ford Hospital. But unfortunately, Henry Ford Hospital will provide almost no tax revenue because it's a nonprofit.
We don't know that.
Yeah, but a large percentage of it will be used for hospital, I think. At least based on other communities, that's what's happened. So I think the private, commercial, and real estate interests will do this work naturally because they want to develop their land, they want to sell their property, they want to construct buildings. I just don't see a need for this. We could spend the $30,000 on sidewalks where people need them or want them. All of our surveys said that's the number one want. I don't think people are asking for more traffic. So why should we pay $30,000 a year to do something that's a long shot, if come, to require $12 to $24 million per year in new investment, which is almost insurmountable to break even. So I'm voting no.
Okay. Anybody else? All righty. Anybody in the
Yes,
public?
please, Mr.
Hold on. Yes, John?
My calculus, which I haven't had since Wyandotte High School in 1966, is that if we don't approve this, it's short-sighted. And a practicing lawyer who goes to court often, as I do, when you say an impeachment hearing of a president was not about Bill Clinton or was not about Donald Trump, then it's about Bill Clinton. Then it's about Donald Trump. This is about someone who has visited businesses, Gary Heitman, of over 200 since 2016. This is about nurturing business. This vote, the only proper way to frame it, you're either pro-business to nurture business, smokeless, wonderful high-tech businesses that we have. Not one person yet has said, including our supervisor, has said thank you to our corporate community contributors, Rivian, Bosto, Wabash, and Lock Performance. And being the only trustee east of Sheldon. I drive down Haggerty every year. I do understand there is one lady here with a business background, a business administration degree from Central Michigan University, and I think she'd like to make some comments, but she would have to go through the supervisor if we proceed properly. But that's my focus. You either nurture good business and you have a Bosch who's contributing over $100,000 a year to STEM programs with the Plymouth Canton Community District. Hello? A lot of German engineers. Do you see the German flag there by Wabasno? A lot of German engineers like classical music. I remember 25 years ago when running for office, former supervisor Jerry Law felt it was necessary to make a $300 contribution per year to the Plymouth Symphony Orchestra, the cornerstone of our culture. The executive director of the Michigan Philharmonic happens to be here tonight. This nurtures and enhances our quality of life. I do believe, but understanding right now, I think we're ready. There's pent-up demand. And I think we're about ready to launch into engendering and nurturing more good business here. Good heavens, I do not want, if those of you who are informed, if you're not informed, let me tell you, we could lose Rivian to California, or we could lose Rivian to Illinois, where the production facility is. They're producing an electric vehicle platform this August. No one has put that on the record here tonight. I don't know why we have not had a chance to, okay. I would hope that we would talk, and I'll conclude with someone else's words. Wes Graff, the 12-year executive director of the Plymouth Chamber of Commerce, which includes Plymouth Township. He is 100% in favor of this economic development coordinator. And we're just shooting ourselves in the foot if we continue to be negative and derogatory. There's no room for that because credibility goes out the door. Thank you very much.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, so I have a question. Can you describe a day in the life? What exactly does this person do? Because I'm hearing things like, you know, they're bringing $100 billion in business into the township, but tell me what do they do exactly?
What are you talking about? On the resume?
No, the economic development coordinator. Describe their typical day. What exactly do they do?
Well, an economic development coordinator in Plymouth Township would be doing the things that are outlined in the contract, which I know is in front of you. Really, it's about making sure that we attract new business to the community, that we work to expand existing businesses in the various industrial corridors that we have.
Yeah,
well,
but I read all that. But talk about how do they do that?
Okay, well,
If you talk about a lawyer,
okay.
you know, we have our lawyer, you know, writes an opinion, and that's part of their typical day. But what exactly does their day look like?
Well, as a matter,
You know, we're going to be a smoking hole in the ground.
but let's try to keep it focused. I do have Gary Heitman in front of us tonight. Gary, what's a day in the life of Gary Heitman?
Let's look at that.
Can you take the mask off, too? You're good.
Okay. Let's look at that. That's a good question, Bob. I get a call from a developer and said, I've got a Japanese company interested in the Durr building. I can show it to them at 2 o'clock. Can you be there? Okay. 1:45, I get there. 2 o'clock, we walk through. We pick up all the dead animals on the ground. We walk through the entire building. And then we talk about...
You're a little far away from the mic. They're interested in what?
example, the Doer
The
building.
Doer building, okay? And we get a lot of calls for Doer. Contrary to Chuck's opinion, the developers don't really have Plymouth Township interest at heart. A lot of them have their own interest at heart. So we walk through the Doer building. They want to know, where can I eat? What can I do? Where can my kids go to school? Are the schools good here? How many people, you know, on a good day can come through here? What's the Plymouth Road look like? What's Haggerty Road look like for traffic? You sit there and you answer these questions.
Have a broker that does that already?
Well,
He
no.
just said that brokers don't have that interest in mind.
The broker is selling the broker. That's why he's there, right? He's there to make money for himself. He's not there to worry about Plymouth Township. That's a valuable lesson that I learned as part of this last 4 years of me doing this job, okay? These guys have gone through, and now they come through and they walk out and they say, you know what, this has really been beneficial to me. And the next day somebody else calls and says, you know what, I got a building, I can't find people, okay? I have 300 openings. What can I do? I go to Schoolcraft College and say, I need these kinds of people, Schoolcraft College. What can we do? All right, I go to PCCS and say, hey, you know what? It looks like there's 1,000 of these job openings, pent-up demand in Plymouth Township today. What can we do? And they actually work with us in setting something up that says, okay, now maybe the best thing is not a college degree. I got kids making $100,000 a year without a college degree today. Plymouth Township people making that kind of money, okay? Because the demand is there. Because I work with PCCS, I work with Schoolcraft. Those are things that happen every single day. As Kurt says, now he's going to do the ribbon cuttings. Retention, I was doing retentions only because Wayne County and the state were doing them. And it was not just, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help. This is one of these that says, can you help me with people? Okay? I want to hire returning citizens. What's it look like in Plymouth Township? What businesses have returning citizens? I give them 4 businesses right now that have returning citizens that are very, very successful in Plymouth Township. I got a Signet who bought a building for $1 million. They put $4 million into that building. They're looking for 3 more buildings in Plymouth Township today. If I go talk to them, is that a retention visit? I don't think so. It's a growth and expansion. And that's exactly what we're talking about. A lot of these businesses. I got 3 businesses in the last week that have sent me notes that said, I want to grow and I want to stay here. And again, contrary to Chuck's opinion, it's not just low taxes. Quality of life is absolute essential. The schools are amazing. You guys are amazing. This is why people want to come here. It's not just low taxes, but we do very, very well here. Our police and our fire are number 1. We had tremendous incidents in the last week. I got people calling me saying, our police are amazing. Businesses call and say, our police are amazing, Gary. Do they call anybody? Hey, you want to grow? They want to stay here. That's a day in the life, Bob.
Okay, I have a basic question here.
Okay.
All of those activities that you described, would all of those be billable? Because I think some of those are specifically named in the contract as not billable.
Yeah, you're right.
He's describing a new existing business expansion.
Yeah.
So workforce development, you're not going to invoice for.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
That's what you're describing when you're talking about Schoolcraft College, and
Yeah,
you're talking
that's
about hiring citizens, ex-convicts is what you mean.
Yeah.
Right.
Returning citizens is the term. yeah.
Ex-convicts is the old way that most people in the audience don't even know what you're talking about, but that's what it is.
That's cultivating and maintaining professional working relationships with community
Right.
stakeholders, blah, blah, blah up there. So it's in the contract, part of his job.
Mr. Heisen, I have a totally different opinion than Mr. Dorshevitz about accountability. My perception is that you will report to this board at least once a month at a regularly scheduled board of trustees. I don't understand why,
Doesn't say that.
I can't get it to work. I can't get a green light. And I'm really getting tired of, the Lord wired me for resonance.
Or what?
Is it green?
Would you get a green light?
Just don't touch it.
It worked when it was my chair.
Okay. My understanding is I would like an update. I'm not mandating that it be monthly, but I would like an update, and I think you have corralled yourself into attending some board meetings again, and I just don't perceive this as a once-a-year thing at all.
Well, okay. It's my job to administer contracts, and it is not in there that he is going to be giving monthly reports. We don't demand that of most of our consultants. Okay, the planning director, she will do reports periodically. I don't think they're monthly. So I'm just, you and I can have that discussion offline, but I think that's just too much.
Mr. Supervisor, for example, I think the public would like to know an update, which I have not heard, on Amazon occupying Spartan. And I think that is the purview of this board and our job to communicate that update. And I would like you to inform our residents of Plymouth Township. And that's just one small example. I can think of a lot of other examples.
Okay. I mean, we did update the board when Amazon came to town, which was last fall. And Amazon came to town because a day in the life of, Kurt Heise is when they call and say, how do we look in terms of our zoning, our parking, and the nuts and bolts that the engineer and the planner and the building department have to do. And we weren't closed all year like our surrounding communities, who were hiding under their beds. We were actually working with these guys so that we're ready when this COVID thing is over with.
And just so you know, we met with Amazon at least 8 times. I mean, we want that spot right there.
This
right?
moment is the first time that I'm aware of that.
Okay? And this is just one of those this is economic development. This is not community development. There's a huge, huge difference, and people have to start figuring out that there is a difference. We have 4 economic development coordinators in Canton. Okay? The lead one makes $110,000 a year. Okay? Livonia has 3. Okay? The lead one makes over $100,000 a year. But there's more of those people. Plymouth has them too. Okay?
Plymouth has what?
Community development.
Oh, you're talking about urban planning, community development.
Economic development, they have staffs that do this, of 4 people and 3 people.
And they have community development, which is mostly
A separate staff.
grant management,
Right.
CDBG, TIFA, DDA directors, things of that nature. It's
Now,
a different animal.
One of the things I've been doing the last year is doing grant work for COVID with our businesses, okay? So if Wayne County has a grant or the state has a grant for our businesses, I find out, I tell the businesses that it look like it would apply to them. I judged grants this year for Wayne County, and believe me, I gave the best I could do to help our Plymouth Township businesses. Right?
Did you receive any compensation for helping them?
Free. That was all part of my last 4 years of doing it for nothing.
Okay, speaking of the last 4 years, will you be able to get me just a list of Each company, what goes on in that building? Is it a sales office? Is it a test lab? Is it a factory that makes widgets? Remember I asked you 3 months ago about that?
Wayne County has that information.
How
and
come you
I've
don't
asked
have it
for
if you
Wayne
went on the
County to
call?
Give that whole information.
Okay,
yeah.
you went on the call, though. Didn't you write it down?
Well, I write them down, sure. I got lists of who's who and who I
Chuck,
talked to.
you wanted spreadsheets, you wanted numbers, you wanted data, you wanted population counts and all that stuff.
No, I didn't. I just wanted
Yeah,
to
you
know.
did. I read
No,
that.
I didn't. What company? What do they do in that building at that address?
A contact in that company.
Webasto. They manufacture something. How many employees? Don't even need to know that.
I've been in Wabasto 3 times.
Well, why don't you invite me? I don't know when you're going.
Okay, I'll invite you next time.
Yeah.
Welcome to the east side of Township and
Okay,
Lake Point.
we're
I
getting
grew
off
up
track.
there.
Haggerty Road.
We're getting off track. All right, so let's wrap this up. Gary, Bob, John, I think we're all set from you guys. Okay, cool, good.
I'd like to close with 2 sentences.
Oh, hurry up.
I want to reach out to everyone to support the positive growth and development, the economic growth of Plymouth Township, the talent, and I think I know a little something about talent.
Really?
The talent is already right here.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Talent just spoke, Gary Heitman, and yes, it's about him. It's as a trustee, he's been on the job for the last 4.5 years, actively talking with business people about locating their businesses in our community. Let's make a positive move tonight and go onward and forward.
Okay.
I would like Ms. Birmingham to also speak.
People will speak if they want to speak, so.
I don't want her
I'd
to be
like-
bullied away from the microphone.
I'm just trying to move things along, John. Okay, it's public comment time on this item. Mr. Zantop, you have 3 minutes.
And speak close to the mic.
First of all, I know why I didn't vote for Mr. Stewart tonight. Next time I'm going to wear my damn hip boots. So anyways, putting that aside, I worked 4 years to help elect you guys, and this crap was going on before. We created jobs for people, and one of them damn near went to prison. I have to read from my notes. I'm getting old. I absolutely see no justification in creating this new position. I don't think jobs have been created with a specific person in mind. Why are other people's not being interviewed? One former township trustee did a good job our former township officials did a good job of developing just about every available piece of property in the township. Any additional economic development should be the responsibility of our supervisor, trustees, and other township officials. Our supervisor was bitterly opposed when our former supervisor created an unnecessary job for Mike Mitchell. How does this differ? In Supervisor Heisey's own words, reminds me of the friends and family plan from the Facano regime of Wayne County. Plymouth Township deserves better. Evidently, there's a rush to get this back on the agenda, knowing that one of our trustees would not be present tonight. I encourage everyone to vote no, and I'm kind of shook, so.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Birmingham.
She's approaching.
I got her. And you can take the mask off too, it's okay.
I'm Beth Birmingham, and I live at 14925 Farmbrook Drive in Lake Point, Michigan. And I do think that Gary Heitman deserves to be the liaison for the economic development. He will enhance economic development of Plymouth Township to help the community prosper and grow. He will help retain businesses, and he'll help strengthen our community. It creates jobs, like he said, getting people from Schoolcraft and working with Plymouth Public Schools. I am a substitute teacher with Plymouth Canton Public Schools, and I do think it's a great district, so I think that's going to be a great asset. And I am thinking of going back and getting my degree at Schoolcraft College so I can become a real teacher. So I also agree that he can get people to do the jobs that if businesses come to Plymouth Township, then we will have a great population to fill those jobs. He helped with Rivian, Bosch, Webasto, along as also the other list of businesses that he has visited, and he did this during his 4.5 years pro bono. So I think he does deserve this position. Also, I think it will help the quality of life. Lake Point is located at the corner of 5 Mile and Haggerty, and I also drive down Haggerty between 5 Mile and Plymouth Road pretty much every day, and there are 4 or 5 businesses that have come recently, and all of those buildings were empty or there were empty lots, and it's not really good to the eye. So if Mr. Heitman says that he's going to bring more businesses, he's going to do it, and it's just going to be an overall good thing for the community.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
So I'd like to make, if I could make one more comment, since John got a last comment in there. So I'm no on it for tonight, but it doesn't mean that I couldn't be convinced of it in the future. The reason I'm no on it tonight is because I think the scope of work is not well defined and there's not clear accountability to the board. And I think if you went back and did some additional work on it, you might have better support, because I think it would be unfortunate if this goes forward with a split board.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Hearing none, I move that the Board of Trustees authorize the supervisor to sign the attached professional independent contractor agreement with Mr. Gary Heitman and pursuant to the terms and conditions described therein. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Clerk Vorva. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Trustee Monahan. Trustee Kermy.
No.
Trustee Dorshevitz.
No.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is just regular public comment, limited to 3 minutes. Okay. We're going to go now to board comments. I guess not.
You guys haven't heard the end of this. You know I'm a rebel.
Okay, well, that sounds like a threat, but we'll leave it at that. Okay, it's now time for board comments. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. We're doing our best to make sure that your constitutional rights are protected and respected and honored, unlike most of our neighboring communities, with the exception of the city of Plymouth. They are holding open meetings now as well, but most of our surrounding communities still are not. We are doing our best to balance your safety with your constitutional rights of free speech, free assembly, and the right to petition government for a redress of grievances, and that's also very important to us. It's good to see all of you here tonight, and it's been a while, and we do appreciate you. We do appreciate you being here. We really do. We hope that everything worked out well tonight online as well. Gee, I did forget, Bob. Okay, good. So please, if you're still on the line and you want to talk, I guess you could still go through Mr. Jenks, or raise your hand. But it's a balancing act, and I wish that the legislature or the governor or somebody in Lansing would give local governments the ability to determine what is best for their communities when it comes to open meetings in the time of COVID. This doesn't work for everybody. There are communities around us, like I'm thinking of city halls that I've been in, like Garden City, Wayne, where they're on top of each other, and I don't know how they can do a meeting like we're doing tonight with masks 6 feet apart. It's a challenge. Plymouth City had that challenge. They're now meeting in the Cultural Center, and they've got a really nice setup. I watched them on TV Monday night. So I wish that local governments were given the flexibility to make the right decisions on things like this. So hopefully folks in Lansing will hear us on that one, and we can continue to protect your health while respecting your rights, and that's all we're trying to do here tonight. I do understand there may be somebody on the line here, and I forgot to call for Mr. Jenks there. Who is on the line? Okay. Is that Estelle Oliansky on the line? Is she? So hopefully folks in Lansing will hear us on that one. So we're behind. And we can continue to protect your health while respecting your rights. That's all we're trying to do here tonight. Turn off your TV. There may be somebody on the line here, and I forgot to call for Mr. Jenks there. Who is on the line?
I am Estelle Oliansky. I would just...
Okay. Is that Estelle Oliansky on the line?
Yes, it is.
Hopefully people will hear us on that when we're behind. And we can continue to protect your health while respecting your rights. That's all we're trying to do. Estelle, you're on. We can hear you if you start talking. Turn off the background noise. I forgot to call for Mr. James there. Who's on the line?
The TV's creating a feedback loop.
She needs to turn the TV off.
I would just...
Is that Estelle Oliansky on the line?
Yes, it is. Okay, can I talk now?
Yeah, but if you could just limit any...
I'd simply like to ask why Trustee Kermey was not given the opportunity to try to do this job.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do it for free.
I'd like to understand why the board didn't let Trustee Kermey try to do the job for free. And if it didn't work out, you could always hire Mr. Heitman. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, the board speaks through its actions and its motions and resolutions, and we voted tonight 4-3 to assign that task to Mr. Heitman. Okay. We're going to move on. So I wasn't done yet with my comments, so let me just wrap that up. I do want to thank everybody for their consideration of the Economic Development Coordinator position tonight. Whereas many of our communities surrounding us are, I think, are still fixated on the response to COVID, which is a legitimate response, we have to be prepared for the future. We have to start preparing now for a post-COVID world. And people want and need jobs. We've got the face masks, okay? We've got the vaccines, and more are coming. People are worried about their futures. They're worried about their children getting to school and getting into school, and they're worried about paying the bills, and they need jobs. So we need to be ready as a team to position Plymouth Township for the future, and I think it's going to be a bright future, really, for us. I think people like Gary Heitman are going to make it even better by being creative and being nimble enough to attract, to work with our existing businesses to expand and to make sure that they get the assistance that they need and to work with our other stakeholders. So, and I have every confidence that Gary can do that. Economic development, though, is absolutely a team effort. I get a day in the life of Kurt Heise is spent probably a fair chunk every day is spent on some element that you can call economic development. And we work very closely with the building department, planning, engineering, and like I said, we kept our doors open in the summer and in the spring of last year. And we caught a lot of heat for that. There were a lot of people that didn't want us to do that. But we wanted to make sure that our contractors could do their jobs, that they could keep building as they were allowed to do, so that they could make money for themselves and put food on the table, and so that we could start looking over plans and encouraging the kind of economic development that we think is going to continue to strengthen Plymouth Township in the years ahead. We have a lot of very exciting projects going on. Henry Ford Hospital is one, Rivian, obviously, Bosch, Lock Performance. Wabasto, and there's more coming. The MITC corridor is I think is going to take off, despite, frankly, the lack of support we've been getting from the state. I know they've been busy lately, but they need to come back to the table and help us on that. So I do think the future is bright, and I do, John, I do want to respond to the one comment about economic development and updates and stuff like that. I'm happy to do that. Really at any meeting. I've got my finger on a lot of stuff that's going on, and if you have a specific question, please feel free to ask me. So that being said, I do want to update everybody on future board meetings. Let's see. Hold on. March 2nd, we are going to meet again next Tuesday, March 2nd. It's a special meeting. There's nothing really special about it, but a special meeting allows us to vote on stuff. So that's the reason why it's a special meeting. And what's on that agenda right now is a discussion regarding fee adjustments and amendments in the building and planning departments, new police vehicles for the police department. That's a vote. Hopefully we can award a bid on audio services. And
we hope to do that. If not, it'll be the 9th.
And those would be the audio services for this building, and I know Jerry, Mark, and Bob Dorshevitz have been working on that. So I appreciate their time and input. And then we have to do an adjustment to our one of our brownfield plans. It's a long story. I'm not going to get into it right now, but we have to revive a former brownfield plan and assign it to the MITC. On March 9th, we're looking hopefully to approve the fee amendments that we discussed on March 2nd. We have what's known as a PRV, Project Bid Award, with Pat Felrath. We're introducing an ordinance. We call it the Water Delinquency Ordinance. This was one of our high priority goals. This changes the water delinquency timeline from September 1st to November 1st, so that if your water delinquency and your tax delinquency dates line up with each other. The big item for March 9th is we will be looking at our contracts for household hazardous waste. Our current provider would have liked a contract extension, but their new price terms were extremely high, in some cases up to almost $100 per car for each drop-off. So we would be spending $100 for you to drop off a can of paint at the household hazardous waste day. That's not cost-effective at all. It would be a big hit to our solid waste budget. So we went out for bids. We hope that those bids will come in at reasonable numbers. If they're not, we're going to have to make some decisions fairly quick on what's the future of the household hazardous waste program. I love it. I think the residents love it. It's great for the environment, and it's a great public service that really few of our neighboring communities do anymore. So let's see what the bids come in like, and let's hopefully make some decisions on who we will award that contract to at a later meeting. Okay, that's all I've got. Jerry?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. And I do want to thank everybody for coming here. This is how things are supposed to work. It was open. We've talked about this several times. People got their opportunity to speak, and I think that's a tribute to one of the reasons that we got elected was to have this kind of open forum. So I want to thank everybody for participating. We've had a couple of audits in the election process. We had the one where they pulled a number of ballots, and you probably saw something in the paper and the news about that. And so we had that in January, and it showed that the percentage that the candidates received on election night matched because we pulled these random ballots, and so you do an audit that way. We had a second audit about a week and a half ago where it's a process audit. Not only do they pick a precinct and they count all the ballots, and we balanced perfectly, and they check all of our processes. Did everyone do the job the way they were supposed to? And so we got a great grade on that. And that's a tribute to, one, not only my staff, but all the wonderful people who volunteer as election workers. And I know I've had several people who are election workers who felt like they were being dissed a little bit with some of the information out there about how the election went. just want to let them know that they did a great job, and we didn't have any problems here in Plymouth Township, and we should be very proud of our staff here and the people who worked very hard and volunteered. So they were very, very thankful to those people, and they did a wonderful job.
Okay. Mark?
Just real quickly, I also appreciate the conversation, the discussion around these two topics tonight. It's refreshing when you can have a board disagree on matters and still come to respectable conclusions. Let me just draw a quick analogy between the two agenda items. We didn't have a lot of discussion around the golf course today, investing $25,000 in cart paths and air conditioning and drainage. Why? Because I think people intuitively understand that when you invest in something and continue to improve it, it will grow. And that's exactly what happened this year with the golf course. We invested in it. We're going to continue to invest in it to improve and make it grow. I'm very hopeful and confident that in a year's time, when we come back and look at potentially renewing this contract with Gary, we're going to look back and say, that $30,000 was very well spent. It was investment in the community, and as a result, it grew and improved the community.
John Stewart.
I support the golf course 100%. I admire the job they did, and it's very honorable. Somehow in our township budget, I missed the appropriation for the arts. I have two deep thank yous and gratitude. First of all, and I'm sure everyone agrees with me, and joins in me with thanking Fire Chief Dan Phillips for scheduling vaccine shots for all of his firefighters. That is an example that resonated around the state of Michigan. And also the police and also the township employees. We owe Dan a deep word of gratitude. He had to do scheduling up at Schoolcraft Community College a few weeks ago to accomplish all of that. Secondly, there was a precedent set here tonight by your establishing a factual paperwork basis for an 18-year vehicle that was outdated. And I'm glad that we approved a new vehicle in the consent agenda. My final comment, Gary Heitman, I can't begin to thank you enough.
Okay. Audrey. Can you get that microphone away from me?
No, I think I can. He's tame, he's tame. I just want to thank the gentleman who spoke on the golf course, Tony, right, for the dedication it seems that his staff has for the success of Hilltop. I remember when playing it many years ago, thinking it was kind of second rate, and it's so exciting to see that not only have you come this far, but the township also has an extra $25,000 in the coffers because of it. Secondly, I just want to thank my board members that we could have an honest discussion about the economic development need, and I wish Gary all the success, because Gary, your success is our success. If there's anything I can do to help you, just let me know. Thank you.
Okay. Bob Dorshevitz.
Yeah, one comment. I think Rivian was mentioned a couple times tonight, but my understanding, are you hearing the feedback that I'm hearing? Is that me?
No, it's you.
Oh, okay. So my understanding, though, is that Rivian has moved or is in process of moving most of its operations out of state. I just wanted to kind of clarify that.
Are you saying the engineering also is moving?
No. So let me just clarify, re-clarify, or whatever, however you want to call it. But Rivian's headquarters, their design team, their corporate offices, accounting, lawyers, and all that head honcho stuff, the C-suites are still here in Plymouth Township, as is a great deal of some of their their R&D as well, because I know they just built a huge dynamometer. I believe it was like sometime, it was last year, because they had to get a special dispensation for COVID. But that was like a $35 or $3.5 million investment in that building. So they're not moving out. They are moving, I believe, some of their, I may have said design, but I think it's the engineering guys, I think, are staying here.
Software is moving to California?
Engineers are going to California. Now, personally, I believe that that's a decision that they may reverse at some point, because I remember when GM moved, or when Cadillac moved to New York City, because they thought that was cooler than Detroit. Right now, Rivian seems to think that California is cooler than Detroit. There is more talent there for sure, but there's also a lot of downside to living in that part of the country. So let's wait and see over time. I think what we need to do is always be receptive and welcoming to Rivian, because they've got a beautiful building right next door, which is the Burroughs building, and for a long time there we thought that they were going to take over that entire facility, and I still think that that building will be occupied by fully occupied in the next couple of years, and I would not be surprised if Rivian makes a comeback. Bob, anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. Chuck?
Yes. Thanks for doing an audio for the people at home. That was great. Court report. How often do they do that? And I'd like to have it distributed. We need to be looking at their cost control.
Court? For the court?
35th District Court.
Yeah.
I haven't seen one of those in years, the reports. They're...
Well, I don't know about years. I mean, I give out the, when they were coming out, we would get the case counts, which is directly tied to our financial status. But I'm pretty sure, if I'm mistaken, I'll get you those things from the last.
Well, you can do it for everybody.
I mean, we have the audit, we have the budget, we have all that stuff. We have not met, though. The 35th District Court Authority has not met in person since, I don't know, maybe March of last year.
Well, that's what worries me. A hypothesis is they're going to be a cash drain.
Oh,
So we need to get the control of them.
I can almost guarantee it, but they are going to be their revenue stream is going down substantially because of the lack of arrests and prosecutions that are taking place. What little is being done on Zoom, which is very inefficient, in my opinion. But yeah, I suspect that in the years ahead, we are prepared for the court no longer being a revenue generator, but a revenue drain.
I'd like just a one-page, what are the milestones on sidewalks? I'm having a hard time keeping track of it, so just send that out when you get a chance, dates and what we're doing. People are asking me about their sidewalk repair, and I'm telling the people the only place that's getting sidewalk repair in 2021 is Lake Point, as far as I know.
It's our Zone 1 area, which is Lake Point plus some of the other surrounding neighborhoods, but it's primarily Lake Point. Those letters are going to be going out next week, and we plan on doing the public hearing on April 6th. Hopefully, we can do it in this building, but we are prepared to do it at the Four Seasons Pavilion at Township Park if necessary. And if the state shuts that down, then, I guess no sidewalk program, because we can't give people due process.
When you come with the fee schedule,
yeah,
as a reference, we should have key municipalities in the area so we know what they're charging, so we can compare, kind of a competitive analysis. We can look at it. We'll know what the city of Plymouth is charging, what Canton Township is charging, et cetera. And that way, just having a number and saying, please raise it by $10, we have no idea where that is in the realm of competitiveness.
Okay. I mean, that's a tall order, but I mean, I don't, we have very limited staff to do that in the building department, so. Okay. Anything else, Chuck?
No.
Okay. We got it covered. I need a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay. Motion to adjourn by Clerk Vorva. Is there a second? Second, all those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.